All temporary disability grants, which were extended for the period February to December 2020, have lapsed. December was the last month for payment. The temporary disability grant provides financial assistance to more than 200,000 South Africans who are unable to work due to injury or illness for between 6 to 12 months. Due to the hard lockdown implemented last March, the restrictions on personal movement, a 10-month extension was granted before medical reviews would be required again. The sudden suspension of grants has resulted in a dire backlog as those still unable to work due to disabilities rush to receive medical reviews. For more on this, let us now bring in Sassa CEO Busi Memela, who has been doing a media round robin this morning. A very good morning to you. Thank you so much for making the time.
Good morning to you too, ma'am, and good morning to the viewers.
You've probably made several explanations already, but for the benefit of our viewership, can you please explain what happened here in terms of these temporary allotments?
As we call them, temporary disability grants. In terms of the work that we do, we have a range of grants for which we have a budget of about 187 billion rands for this year. We therefore get a grant, we get an allocation on a continuous basis over a month, which is just what we've recently come from. We get about 15 billion from National Treasury to cover all the grants that we have. A temporary disability grant is a grant that is given to an individual that is said to be temporarily unable to work due to a medical condition. In terms of process, what they would normally do is they would go and go to the doctor, get assessed, come with a letter from the doctor, then apply for a grant, be seen by our medical doctors because we also have our own doctors, and then we would decide as to whether they qualify for a temporary grant or not. In terms of what happened last year, because of COVID, what then happened was, as part of the disaster relief, there was an extension by the minister for all the grant recipients not to necessarily come into our offices, but to be extended. And they were extended for 11 months at a cost of 1.8 billion rands. These grants, and the clients do know that at each point, once you've been given a grant for 6 months, it therefore means that if it lapses, you therefore need to start the process again and reapply because we can't assume that the person is still temporarily disabled because some conditions do improve because of medication or on its own, depending on what the case is. So that's what has happened. These grants were the ones that were extended throughout the year last year, and they've now lapsed, and now we have a backlog with all the clients now coming at the same time for them to apply for a grant, which they could have done earlier. But unfortunately, they waited for the last moment, and now they have all lapsed at the same time.
Ms. Memela, just in terms of the classification of a disability, isn't there a contradiction here that a person who's temporarily unable to work is classified as disabled?
I suppose it's temporarily inconvenient in terms of not being able to work at that particular time, according to the doctors. And the conditions may vary from one person to the other. So there's a permanent disability, which would be a person that the doctor would say, you will never be able to work because you're permanently disabled. That one is not part of the temporary disability. So there's two different types of disability.
So take us into these extensions that have been taking place, and if there was proper communication to the affected parties in terms of what will happen in the future.
There has been proper communication. We've been communicating actually since October to highlight to the individuals that we were going to extend it for the last time, the last bit, which was extended in October. Over and above that, we communicated to each individual to say, your grant is going to lapse in December. Should your condition persist, you should come and reapply because it would be a new application. It's unfortunate that all the clients are now coming at this particular point after having not been paid actually in December. And I want to assume that in some instances, clients hoped that it would be extended again. But in terms of the directive, the initial extension was as a result of the fact that there was a dispensation as part of the disaster that was announced, that the minister made a directive that these should be extended. So now the clients need to make sure that they go and have an assessment from a doctor, and after that they can apply. But they can also download an application from our website so that they don't, by the time they come, they know that all they need to do is for them to come and get assessed by our doctor, over and above that to apply for the grant. But for those that are in serious hardship, we then would look at allowing them to apply for a social relief so that we can tie them over whilst they go through the process.
By the very nature of being temporary, what is the maximum amount of time that a person can be on this particular grant?
It's normally between 6 to 12 months, not exceeding 12 months.
Yeah. So you've just, in the beginning of our conversation, you did the number crunching for us. The reason why you decided to block the extension at this point, was it because, as has been reported, that Sassa has run out of money, or have you just reached your limit within this financial year?
We have these clients, we haven't run out of money. Treasury gives us an allocation of about 15 billion on a monthly basis for us to pay people that actually qualify for a grant. It is because in terms of our regulation and in terms of the Social Security Act, the process is such that every 6 to 12 months, depending on what your doctor decided on, your grant would then lapse. So it's because these have lapsed because the period has not been extended. They have to go through the process for them to be extended.
So from these 210,778 beneficiaries, have you been engaging with them? Do you have a sense of what portion of these needs to be moved on to the social relief grant?
They would have to apply for it, so we can't automatically do it. All the clients are currently going to all the different branches for them to decide as to, so that they can assess and decide as to which ones can be given a temporary relief whilst they go through the process. So it's on a case by case, and yes, I understand that it's creating a huge challenge in terms of the pressure that it has on our branches, because we also have to deal with other clients. But all the branches have put in place a project plan so that they can make sure that they can begin to use other halls that are available, or work together with the doctors in their own environments so that we can process these as quickly as we can.
So, Ms. Memela, when the suspension came into effect, some of the people we spoke to were people with permanent disabilities. What do you think, as you say you have been communicating with all affected parties, what do you think caused the misunderstanding in terms of who are the affected people?
The affected people would only be temporary disabled persons. Therefore, not unless people got confused because it was extended for a year that they thought they were under permanent disability. But in each and every case, when a person has been assessed, it's indicated that it's temporary, and the period that the grant is going to exist for is always indicated to the client up front. There's no permanent disabilities that have lapsed.
So what should be the way forward now in terms of just allaying the fears of those nearly a million people who feel that this is an unfair development?
I wouldn't say it's unfair, because it's the process that each and every client that qualifies actually and knows that it would be temporary. So what they need to do is for each and every client to go to a branch nearby and make sure that they are given an appointment for them to be assessed. But over and above that, if they are in dire need, for them to also apply for a social relief so that they can have some kind of sustenance if they are in dire straits in the meantime whilst they await the appointment. But it helps once the client, by the time they come to us, they should have gone to their doctor in a clinic or a doctor close by that would have done the assessment and indicated as to whether the condition still continues to exist or not.
There's also a concern that this reapplication process takes place during level 3 lockdown, where people are really restricted in terms of access and movement. Did you take this into consideration when you made the decision not to extend once again?
I think the issue of extension is very important to understand that it becomes part of the disaster relief. When it was done initially, it was done in March when the country was in complete lockdown. Yes, I understand that we're now in level 3 and the numbers are going up, but in terms of the process, we execute in terms of the regulation, because should we do something different in terms of our side as the implementers, would be found wanting but for not following process in terms of the audits that would be done on us. And that's the challenge that we have. And the minister is aware, and we're all looking at what is it that we need to do to put in place an interim measure to be able to provide support to those that are in dire straits.
And just overall, with regards to the work of Sassa, massive teething problems when the lockdown came into effect, have those all been sorted out? And what lessons have been learned in terms of your processes and an appreciation of the scale that you have to reach out to in terms of South Africans who are in need of grants?
I think for us, there's been very interesting learnings. One, the fact that much as we assume that people don't have access to technology because of the digital divide, we're amazed by the fact that many people were able to apply without actually coming to a Sassa office. We had 9 million applications, 6 million of which were approved, and people paid. We've paid 97.8% of the people over the period, and we paid people in the bank accounts, those that had bank accounts. The second learning is that it becomes very important for our people to make sure that they are banked in one way or the other, so that they don't have to be queuing for them to access their money. The third other learning for us is the fact that it's very important that the databases of government, throughout government as a whole, talk to each other so that we don't have to continuously request for information for us to be able to do an assessment as we approve a client. And the exciting opportunity we have is that in future, we will have all our clients being able to apply digitally without having to come and queue in our offices. Unfortunately, with the disability grants, they have to go through an assessment, but already we're piloting a system for the old age grants, and also for those mothers that would require grants, for them not to necessarily come to our office.
So before lockdown, we used to talk of the Sassa database being made out of 17 million beneficiaries, and you're talking now of 9 million applications additional to that, which means we're now sitting at about more than 25 million numbers in terms of the people who benefit from Sassa. Tell us about the challenges of this weight of expectation.
I think in terms of our and I call them normal clients because they are clients that have been with Sassa for a while, and it's the business that we've been in for a long time. That is the 12 million clients that we pay the 80 million grants. Those are clients that have been with us for a long time, therefore it's not an issue. The new clients, which is the 9 million applicants, the challenge we've had is the fact that many of them did not have bank accounts. All the other clients, the 12 million clients that we have, are all banked because they are clients that go through a particular process with us, and we would normally open a bank account with the post office if they don't have a bank account, or they would on their own go and open a bank account so that we can pay into their bank account. 30% of our clients actually bank with other banks, and only 70% are actually paid through the post office, but they do it digitally. That's why they can be able to get paid anytime, anywhere, because they don't even have to go to a post office. They can go to a retail shop or they can go to an ATM and actually get their grant. The 9 million clients are new additional clients that have given us an opportunity to actually learn on how to actually assess as to whether people are not double dipping in terms of benefits that they are getting. And this is going to help us even in terms of looking at the current clients, the 12 million clients that we have, to make sure that even those clients that we have are not double dipping, because now we have access to databases that we did not have before. Yes, we used to ask for information from the client, but we didn't actually go, for example, to the different environments and actually make a digital assessment as to whether the people have the other benefits or not.
Ms. Memela, before we let you go, we asked our viewers to take part in this conversation, and Tepo Mullo says that's unfair treatment to temporary disability grants receivers during this tough time, while South Africans are faced with a high number of unemployment. It deals with what you've already touched on during the conversation. But just in terms of the way forward, just tell us, just reiterate for us what the affected parties should do going forward in terms of a renewal of their grants.
I think it's important to highlight to Tsepo that a disability grant, be it temporary or permanent, is not necessarily an unemployment grant, notwithstanding the fact that we have a lot of people that are challenged by the whole issue of unemployment and the fact that jobs are scarce. There is debates that are currently taking place in the country within government quarters where they are looking at an issue of big. I don't know when and how that will be implemented, but the learnings that we've had as an institution is if we had to implement any kind of process for big, we would have to do it digitally, particularly for those that have access to technology, because it just makes it much easier and makes it easier for people not to actually convert into our offices, because even if you don't have access to technology as a person, I mean, for example, we have one elderly person who's been helping people in his community for them to apply using his phone because he sees himself as a community leader. So that becomes an opportunity too. But it's also for us to make sure that for the future, we have people that work in communities that actually can provide support to those people that don't have a digital technology for them to access the information, not only the information, but the grants, because there is unfortunately quite a huge need out there because of just the lack of jobs and the impact that COVID has had, whereby more and more people have actually lost jobs. So there's huge opportunities in terms of upside, in terms of how we can do this in future.
Let's thank you again for talking to us this morning.
Thank you, Desiree. Thank you to you, and thanks to the viewers.
Busi Memela is the Chief Executive Officer of Sassa. It's part of our question for today, where we asked you how you have been affected by the suspension. Let us know at the agenda _ SABC, and we'll be taking a look at your comments at some point.